Rejected millionaire discovered amazing love with the poor girl sleeping at the bus stop, a truth beyond wealth. Jack stood at the edge of the crowded San Francisco street, the neon lights flickering like the remnants of his past life. Once a tech millionaire, he felt like a ghost wandering through a world that only reminded him of his fall from grace. Now, at 35, he was living in his childhood bedroom surrounded by family members who couldn't hide their disappointment. As he walked, the hasty shuffle of hurried commuters drowned out the whispers of judgment that trailed him like shadows, that s when he saw her. At a bus stop, a young woman in a tattered blanket lay asleep. Though her clothes were worn and her circumstances dire, there was an undeniable spark in her face, a spirit unbroken by the harshness of life. It caught Jack off guard, a feeling he thought he had lost forever. He stepped closer, heart racing. Who was she, lying there beneath the city lights, and why did it feel like she was staring straight into his soul? He couldn't resist. As if pulled by an invisible thread, he crouched beside her. When she woke, her eyes darted, cautious but curious. "I'm Sarah," she said, her voice soft yet sturdy, like a whispered promise. A smile broke across her face, and for the first time in months, Jack felt warmth not just from the fleeting summer air, but from the connection blooming between them. Their conversations became a nightly ritual. Jack learned that Sarah, barely in her 20s, aspired to be a nurse. Yet, her reality was a heavy shackle of poverty. For every laugh they shared, he felt his heart lighten. She spoke with passion, her dreams fueling his desire to rediscover his own purpose. It was as if Sarah was a lighthouse in the fog of his ruined existence, guiding him closer to something genuine. But outside their bubble, judgment loomed. Jack's former friends, all suited up and sipping cocktails, scoffed at the thought of him connecting with someone of Sarah's circumstances. "What a waste," they whispered, their eyes filled with disbelief. Yet in Sarah's gaze, he found an authenticity that was worth every snicker, every rolling eye directed his way. His family pushed harder, insisting he was squandering his chance at redemption. They pointed to the gala approaching, a local charity event to spotlight the struggles of the homeless. "Don't you want to be someone again?" they pressed. Jack felt the walls closing in. It was a battle between the life he had, defined by wealth and status, and the love that challenged everything he had ever known. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the gala approached, the stakes soared. Jack stood at a crossroads, caught between the comfortable past and the thrilling, yet uncertain present. Each heartbeat echoed the question, could he truly let go of everything he once held dear to stand beside Sarah, a woman who embodied resilience? It was terrifying but exhilarating, a chance for redemption and love, but would it be enough? With the night looming ahead, Jack found himself at a pivotal moment, wondering if he could embrace this new beginning or would succumb to the weight of his past. In that sharp silence, the uncertainty felt heavier than ever. The night of the gala arrived with a bittersweet buzz of anticipation. Jack looked in the mirror of his childhood bedroom, the familiar reflection staring back at him, haunted eyes, unkempt hair, a suit that felt stiff against his skin. The city outside pulsed with life, and he could almost hear the laughter and clinking of glasses that awaited him. But tonight, each sound was muted by an inner turmoil that tightened his chest. That he thought of Sarah as he adjusted his tie. Would she be watching from the sidelines? As he arrived at the venue, he searched the crowd, hoping to find her sparkling eyes amidst the sea of glittering gowns and tailored suits. Her laughter, so authentic and warm, echoed in his mind, a stark contrast to the perfumed air swirling around him. Though he was surrounded by familiar faces, he felt more alone than ever. Losing himself in meaningless small talk with old friends felt like wading through quicksand. They talked about investments, extravagant vacations, and plans that felt so distant from the life he was now living. But whenever his heart seemed to find a moment's respite, he'd remember Sarah, her strength, her dreams pinned on a frayed hope, and a sense of urgency pulled him away from the idle chatter. As the gala progressed, the spotlight turned toward the night's purpose, shining on the stories of those who struggled, people like Sarah. Familiar eyes bored into him from across the room, eyebrows raised at his absence from their cliques, whispers surrounding him like a cloud. He hated how they treated his friend, as if her existence was a burden he chose to bear. Yet, he couldn't let their judgments extinguish the fire ignited by Sarah. Jack stepped outside onto the balcony, yearning for a breath of fresh air. The cool wind brushed against his skin. He imagined Sarah, alone at the bus stop, dreaming of the future. In that moment, clarity washed over him. Here he stood in a room of endless wealth, and all he could think about was the girl who showed him the true value of life. He pulled out his phone, every nerve brimming with hope as he texted her. "Wish you were here." The moment he hit send, his heart raced. Would she respond? What if she didn't? Minutes felt like hours. The bustling party continued to unfold behind him, and he contemplated going back inside. Just as he began to turn, his phone chimed. "Meet me at the bus stop," she replied. His heart soared. Every doubt began to evaporate. Half an hour later, Jack hurried through the streets, the glowing city a blur around him. His feet hardly felt the pavement as he navigated familiar lanes. When he arrived at the bus stop, his breath hitched at the sight of Sarah wrapped in her blanket, staring up at the stars with a look of serene wonder. "Hi," she said softly as he approached, her eyes lighting up with recognition. "Hi," he breathed, overwhelmed with a mixture of relief and joy. As they talked, Jack poured out everything: his struggles, his past, his family's expectations. Sarah listened intently, not with pity, but with understanding. "You don't need to be defined by anyone else, Jack," she said, her voice steady and sure. "You get to choose your life." Her words struck a chord. Jack realized he was standing at a different crossroads now. Behind him was a world of superficial status, but in front of him was something raw and beautiful. "Maybe I don't need the gala after all," he said, the thought crystallizing with each word. Then, as if a curtain had been lifted, he suddenly asked, "Will you come with me, to live this life, whatever it may be?" But the weight of the world waited in the shadows as Sarah's smile faltered. What would it mean for her world to intertwine with his? Would she say yes or turn away, leaving him with yet another unanswered question? Jack waited, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. Each second stretched out, becoming a heavy weight hanging in the air between them. Sarah's smile had dimmed, and he could see the flicker of uncertainty pass through her eyes. He wanted to reach out, to pull her into his world, but he feared it might be a burden she didn't want. "Jack," she began, her voice soft yet firm. "You know my life isn't easy. Your world and mine are so different. You're meant for big things." There was a hint of sadness in her tone, a weariness that spoke of her struggles. "No, Sarah. You have no idea what I truly want. It's not the wealth, the parties, it's you." The words slipped out before he could stop them, raw and unfiltered. He wasn't sure if they made sense, but in that moment, they became his truth. She looked down at her hands, her fingers twirling the edge of the blanket. "But I'm just a girl at a bus stop, Jack. You've got a future waiting for you. It would be a mistake to let me pull you down." In her eyes, Jack saw a reflection of his own fears, the worries that had plagued him since the gala. He wasn't sure how to bridge the gap between their two worlds, but the thought of returning to that life without her felt wrong. "No one ever truly knows what the future holds," he replied. "It's not about status or possessions. It's about real connection. I feel that with you, Sarah." The air was thick with tension. It felt as if the city around them had all but faded away, leaving just the two of them on that lonely corner. Jack felt a growing urgency, the night was slipping away. "You've seen me for who I am beyond the suit and those expectations. You get me." For a moment, silence enveloped them. Jack searched Sarah's face as if seeking clarity, a sign on which path to take. But her expression remained indecipherable. "What if I can't provide what you need?" she murmured, a shadow flickering across her face. "What if loving me means giving up everything you've worked for?" Jack stepped closer, longing to bridge the gap, to show her that the life he wanted wasn't built on money or prestige, it was built on something much more substantial. He reached out, gently lifting her chin to meet his gaze. "You're not a burden, Sarah. You're my freedom. Together we can find a way to make it work." Her hesitation lingered, but amidst it, Jack noticed a spark of hope. "I've always believed in chasing dreams, Jack," she whispered, her voice shaking slightly. "But what if our dreams lead us into the unknown?" "The unknown sounds better with you by my side," he replied, the honesty in his voice ringing clear. He could feel her spirit wrestling with doubt, but moments turned into breaths, and he knew somehow, this was their moment. That as Sarah opened her mouth to respond, a bus approached, headlights glowing in the distance. Neither moved. Jack's heart raced as if the vehicle was barreling towards the two of them, but all he could focus on was Sarah's next words. Would she take that leap with him? Or would she step onto that bus, leaving behind everything they had just begun to explore? The bus slowed, and he felt a jolt of urgency. "What will it be, Sarah?" The question hung heavy in the air, teetering on the edge of their fate. The bus creaked to a halt, its doors swinging open with a sudden rush of air. Jack held his breath, waiting for Sarah to speak. The dim lights of the bus illuminated her face, casting soft shadows that mirrored the conflict brewing in her heart. "Jack," she whispered, uncertainty lacing her voice. "I don't know." He could barely hear her through the pounding of his heart. It felt like the thrum of his entire world hinged on her next words. Time faded into the background, and all Jack saw was the fragility of this moment, the vulnerability etched on her features. "Sarah," he pressed gently, taking a step closer. "You don't have to decide right now, but please don't make a choice out of fear. Take a chance with me." Her eyes searched his, and Jack felt a rush of hope. There was a flicker there, a hint that perhaps she was starting to dream of a different path. But doubt lingered, weighing heavily between them. "You're everything I want," he said, voice steady, determined. "But I won't push you. I can wait." Sarah's gaze shifted toward the bus, the whispers of passengers inside filtering through the air. Jack could see the pull of her responsibilities, the life that waited for her just beyond the doors, a world filled with familiar struggles. The bus lights flickered, revealing faces, judgments, and expectations he had escaped but that she couldn't just walk away from. Jack pretended to breathe normally, willing her to look back at him, to choose the path less traveled. But the moment felt so fragile, as if a simple breath could shatter it. "Is it really so bad?" she finally asked, her words weighing heavily in the air. "What if I could go for a while, but then you'd realize what's waiting for you? All the things you'd be giving up." "I can't focus on that, Sarah. I don't care about the parties, the expectations," he replied, feeling a surge of conviction. "I want a life of meaning. And that can only be with you. Just let me show you what it's like to be free, to truly want something for yourself, and not what others expect of you." A moment of silence hung in the air. The city continued to pulse around them, indifferent to this small, delicate encounter, a tale of two different lives teetering on the edge of something beautiful. Jack's heart beat louder as he saw her lips form a slight, trembling smile, but just as he thought she was leaning toward him, her expression shadowed over again. "What if the real burden is me dragging you down into my life?" she challenged softly. "What if you find I can't be what you hope for? What if I disappoint you?" Disappointment isn't a deal-breaker. It's part of life, he insisted, longing to capture her fear and turn it into courage. "I would rather have you in my life and face struggles together than to not have you at all. It's worth the chance, worth everything." Her eyes bore into his, gauging the sincerity in his stance. Finally, she whispered softly, "You really mean that?" "I do," he said firmly, his own uncertainty breaking just enough to let warmth rush in. "And I believe in you, Sarah. In us. As the bus driver signaled again, Sarah shifted her weight, torn between the familiar and the unknown. Jack felt the swell of desperation rise within him but held his ground, the weight of their moment thick and palpable. "What's it going to be?" he asked, heart racing, as she took a small step forward. Sarah held his gaze, searching, and then the corners of her mouth turned up slightly. Maybe I need to discover what's waiting for me too." Just as she lifted her hand as if to reach for him, the air thickened, a sudden noise from the bus cutting through their moment and making them both turn to look. There, from the open doors, an unexpected figure emerged, a tall man with a sleek suit and an air of confidence that screamed privilege. And he was heading straight for them, eyes locked onto Sarah. Jack felt an instant pang of unease as he caught Sarah's expression shift, her momentary courage faltering. "Sarah," Jack started, anxiety gripping his chest. The man approached, familiarity etched on his face, and Jack could only wonder how this would change everything. Would she see this as her chance, her escape? "Sarah." "There you are," the man called, a smirk crossing his features. "I've been looking everywhere for you." Jack's heart sank as he braced himself for what was surely about to unravel before them. The man's eyes flickered between Jack and Sarah, a mixture of surprise and smug satisfaction lighting up his face. Jack could feel the weight of the moment shift, his pulse quickening with each approaching step the man took. "Ethan," Sarah breathed, her voice barely above a whisper, as if the name alone held 1,000 unspoken words. Jack felt heat rising in his cheeks, not from anger, but a blinding burst of confusion. Why was he here? And what did he want with her? "Good to see you again," Ethan said, his smirk unfaltering. "I figured it was only a matter of time before you'd catch a bus back home." The tone dripped with condescension. Jack caught Sarah's eyes. One moment they shimmered with possibility, and now they clouded with a familiar fear. He wanted to reach out, to steady her, to remind her of everything they'd just shared. But he could feel the barrier rising as she quickly stepped back, her body instinctively reacting to the face of her past. "Ethan, she started, hesitating, visibly trapped between the memories he dragged along with him and the uncertain future Jack had just begun to illuminate. "Let's not drag this out," Ethan interjected, a subtle challenge evident in his posture. "You don't have to feel guilty about leaving. You have a life waiting for you back where you belong." Jack took a step forward, his voice breaking through the tension. "She doesn't belong to anyone. Sarah can choose her own path." The crack in Ethan's confidence widened, if only for a fleeting moment. "Choose? Is that what you think she'll get with a life like this?" He sneered, gesturing vaguely to Jack's worn jeans and the bus looming behind them. "This life of open-ended dreams and empty promises? I'm offering her more than you ever could," Jack said firmly, anger mingling with urgency in his voice. "I'm offering her a chance at happiness. Is that what you call it?" Ethan shot back, his smirk faltering. "Trust me, it's a nice illusion. But illusions don't pay the bills or give you security." Jack's heart raced, he felt the pull of disbelief in Sarah's eyes, a mix of possibility and doubt. She had a choice, but now it felt as if the ground was slipping beneath her feet. "Are you really happy, Sarah?" Ethan pressed, keeping his eyes trained on her, his voice dipping into that familiar tone of persuasion. "You've always played it safe. Why take the risk on someone like him?" "Because she's not just safe," Jack countered, desperation creeping into his voice. "She's brave and full of life. She deserves to explore, to be who she truly is." The war of emotions played out across Sarah's face. Jack watched hopelessness flicker there, then fight against it, desperately wanting to break free from the grip of her past while also being transfixed by the certainty that the comforts it promised were just a breath away. "Sarah," Jack whispered, pleading. "Please, look at me." Her gaze shifted back to him, desperation evident. "I just don't know what to do," she confessed, her voice cracking. Ethan stepped closer, urgency sharpening his voice. "Come with me, Sarah. Let us leave this circus behind." "Circus?" Jack scoffed. I'm standing right here, ready to fight for you, while he just wants to take you back to his world. For a moment, everything stood still. The crowded street around them faded to background noise. The only thing that mattered was the choice suspended in the air, heavy and waiting. Wait! Sarah exclaimed suddenly, glancing between the two men. Are you both really fighting for me? Of course. Jack affirmed, his heart pounding. I won't give up on you. Me too, Ethan said, his tone turning serious. I know what you're capable of. You don't want this life. You've always wanted more. The bus doors swung shut, a voice calling for departure, forcing the moment to collide. As Sarah stood at this irrevocable crossroad, dread coiling in Jack's gut, he could only think of the gravity of her next words. Did she have the strength to take a leap into the unknown? The question lingered, heavy like the night sky, and Jack realized, despite the chaos, whatever her choice was, it would shake the foundation of their lives. Sarah, Jack breathed, his future, his heart hanging in the balance. But then, as if a cloud of realization had shifted, her eyes locked into his like she was finally steadying herself. And just as she opened her mouth, ready to speak, the bus driver called one last time, last chance. We're leaving soon. Would she turn towards him, or would she let the past dictate her future? Sarah, wait. Jack's voice was thick with urgency, but the words barely made it through the suffocating tension hanging in the air. Ethan stepped closer, brow furrowed in concern for her. You know you can't stay here. This isn't your life. Jack could see Sarah's eyes darting between the two men, the storm brewing in her heart reflected in her wide gaze. Jack wanted so desperately to pull her into his arms, to shield her from the pain and hesitation swirling around them. But instead, he stood still, heart pounding, waiting for her response. Are we really at this point? She said softly, more to herself than to either man. I thought when I left, I'd have a chance to really find out who I am. But now her voice trailed off, caught in the web of her old life and new desires. Jack could feel the aching weight of her words, the way they hung in the air like a thick fog. You are who you choose to be, he urged. You don't have to go back to a life that made you unhappy. Jack, you're asking me to gamble everything, she replied, desperation edging her tone. What if I fail? What if I make the wrong choice? Ethan seized the moment, stepping forward, authority in his voice. Or what if you realize you were always meant to be in that room of comfort and security? You had a life there, memories, friends, stability. He paused, letting his words hang heavy, a smirk trying to break through. Isn't that far better than the unknown? Jack's heart sank. But what about happiness, Sarah? What about finding out who you really are? Tears filled her eyes, the spark of frustration making them glisten. I want to believe I can be happy with you, she whispered, her voice quaking. But fear keeps pulling me back. The bus honked again, its impatient engine resonating through the murmurs of the awaiting crowd. The noise seemed to amplify the urgency of the moment, pressuring Sarah to decide. Jack clenched his fists, feeling the heat of the moment blaze through him. Sarah! Jack called once more, desperation lacing his voice. I'd rather have you for a moment in this chaotic life than lose you forever to a past that doesn't know your worth. Ethan's face twisted with irritation, and he shot Jack a glance that flickered dangerously. You think this is a game? He snarled. You think you can sweep in and offer her a dream? You'll only end up breaking her heart. In that moment, Sarah's expression shifted, realization dawning as she took in the gravity of both men's pleas. Jack's earnestness, combined with Ethan's smothering familiarity, it was a clash between freedom and the safety of a past life. Maybe. Sarah spoke, her voice barely a whisper, maybe I'm scared of who I'll become if I choose this. Jack took a step closer, his voice gentle and raw. Then let us figure it out together. But with that, the bus driver's voice boomed again. Last call. We're leaving now. Sarah stood frozen, caught in the crossfire of her own heart, and just as she began to step toward the uncertainty, she looked back at Jack, her eyes glistening with uncertainty. "Sarah, please," he begged, the tension palpable. "You hold the power." The question hung in the air like a weight, palpable and real, demanding her choice. As the bus door swung lingeringly closed, a final echo of the life she held close to her heart grew fainter. Would she step forward with Jack into a life of possibility, or retreat back into the arms of comfort that Ethan offered, knowing well it may suffocate her spirit? The storm inside her raged on, but the answer lay just ahead. Sarah felt the tremor of the moment in her bones, every heartbeat echoing the enormity of her choice. The bus door swung ominously, like a gateway to a life she had been desperate to leave. And yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was tethering her to Ethan, wrapping around her heart like a familiar fabric. The world around her buzzed, people milling about, unaware of the war that waged within her. Jack's eyes were ablaze with hope, an invitation to an uncertain but thrilling future. He stood there, raw and open, vulnerability carved into his features. "What if I stumble?" she murmured, glancing at Ethan, who looked like a secure harbor amidst the chaos. "Then I'll be there to catch you," Jack replied, every word a reassurance. Ethan's smirk faded as he stepped closer, his voice low and measured. "Or you could step back into a life that's already established. No risks, no heartbreak." His tone was smoother than silk, but she could feel the iron grip behind his words. Her heart raced, wrestling with the warmth and connection she felt with Jack versus the safety that Ethan represented. "Sarah, remember what stability feels like," Ethan pressed, his eyes urging her to reconsider. "You can't deny how much easier life was before what?" Jack interjected, his frustration bubbling over. "Before she discovered her dreams. Before she realized she's worth more than mere comfort. Life isn't always about playing it safe." The bus idled, the hum of its engine contrasting sharply with the electric tension in the air. Sarah could feel her breath quickening. She bit her lip, torn between the allure of freedom and the fears that haunted her. "Why does this have to be so hard?" she whispered, tears threatening to spill. "Because change takes courage," Jack said gently, his gaze steady. "But you deserve the chance to be happy. With me." Ethan shifted, his irritation giving way to a forced calm. "You think love can fix everything? It's not just about feelings. It's about making the right choices." "I want to be true to myself," Sarah replied, the weight of her words lifting a fraction of the heaviness that had settled on her heart. "I don't want to just exist." Jack reached out tentatively, fingers brushing her arm. It sent electricity racing through her skin, igniting parts of her that had long been dormant. "Then step forward with me, Sarah. Let us carve out a life that's ours." The hum of the bus started to fade, and Sarah felt a pull toward the future, a beacon of hope shining through the murkiness of her past. But the fear was still there, lurking in the shadows. Just then, the bus driver's voice called out again, a reminder that time was running out. "Sarah, please." Jack sneaked a glance at the bus as if it were a gate closing on everything they could potentially share. "Don't let fear dictate your life." In that moment, something inside her began to unravel. The idea of being truly happy, free from constraints, felt intoxicating. She looked at Jack, desperation mingling with hope in his pleading eyes. "I want to believe that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You can," he replied, the sincerity of his words filling the space between them. But as she took a step toward him, Ethan's voice broke through. "Don't walk away from your reality, Sarah." She turned, torn. The weight of both choices crashed down on her like a thunderous wave. What if she chose wrong? What if she chose right? The consequences felt monumental. "Sarah, come on. You know what you really want," Jack coaxed gently, reaching out further. And just like that, she felt the storm within her quiet, as if a part of her had finally made its decision. Would she take that leap, embracing the unknown with open arms? The answer hung before her like an outstretched hand. But just then, the door to the bus began to close, sealing off yet another layer of her past. What was it going to be? A leap into the exhilarating unknown, or a retreat back into the confines of a known life? As the final whistle blew, she took a deep breath, the entire world narrowing down to that pivotal moment. Sarah's heart thudded in her chest as she stood, frozen in time. The world seemed to blur around her, the faces of strangers blurring past like a memory she couldn't quite grasp. Jack's outstretched hand was a lifeline, a whisper against the chaos. As the bus door clicked ominously, sealing the opening to her past, she felt a rush of clarity surge through her body. Sarah, Jack's voice cut through the noise, filled with urgency and sincerity. Please. She breathed in deeply, tasting the air heavy with the scent of diesel and desperation. Her eyes flicked from Jack's longing gaze to Ethan's now guarded expression. She sensed the weight of expectations, choices, and fears all converging at once. What if I regret this? She voiced, the words hanging in the air, heavy with uncertainty. Regret is better than wondering what if, Jack replied, his hands tight with hope. The way he looked at her, like she was more than just some passing moment, sent a flicker of warmth through her, but Ethan took another step forward, his voice smooth but edged with desperation. You have everything you need with me, Sarah. You know that. This is a whim. A fleeting moment. You deserve stability. His words crawled under her skin, as familiar as an old coat, comfortable but suffocating. In that instant, memories of late nights spent in their small apartment, the mundane safety of their predictable life flashed in her mind. Yet, Jack's presence felt like the first burst of spring after a long winter full of possibility. What about your dreams? Jack urged, desperation creeping into his voice. This is your chance, Sarah. Don't let it slip away. The bus door started to close, the dull sound echoing like an impending finality. Panic rose within her as she realized she didn't want to let it close. She didn't want to let go of Jack, the hope he represented, the unknown that shimmered like sunlight through a fog. A million thoughts raced through her mind. What if she never felt this way again? What if Ethan was right, but was it really happiness he offered? Or was it just a sedate existence wrapped in safety? She clenched her fists, heart pounding. Ethan, I love you, but the last word hung heavy in the air, unspoken but loud enough to shatter the silence. Jack stepped closer, his hand finally wrapping around hers. Then come with me, he urged, his voice softening. Let us find out what love can truly mean. Sarah's breath caught, the warmth from Jack's hand igniting courage within her. She glanced at Ethan one last time, the man who had been her safe harbor in a storm. Their history glimmered between them, but she was growing tired of standing still amidst the tides of her life. I want more, she murmured, the resolve in her voice strengthening. In that moment, she let go of the past, the weight of expectation lifting. With a swift motion, she stepped forward, crossing the boundary of what she thought she could only dream of. Jack's eyes lit up, bursting with excitement and relief as if she had just chosen the universe. Then suddenly, a loud clang interrupted their connection. A suitcase fell from the bus's hold, thudding against the pavement. The distraction pulled her gaze away for just a second, and amidst the sudden commotion, something caught her eye. It wasn't just a suitcase. As she turned back to Jack, a man rushed by, bumping into him, nearly knocking Jack off balance. She flinched as unexpected anxiety seized her. What just happened? She wondered, panic rising once more. Would they still have a chance to step forward together? Would fate allow this path to unfold, or was she just teetering on the edge, about to tumble into chaos again? In that spiraling moment, she realized she was more terrified than ever but somehow, more alive. As the override of emotion surged through her, she held tightly to Jack's hand, ready to face whatever came next. When Ethan's voice broke through the din, accusing and dark, it felt like shadows creeping in. Could she really break free, or was she about to dive headfirst into the unknown, with no safety net, that pulse in the Air was impossible to ignore. Would they move forward together, or would the reality of her decision come crashing down on her before she could take that leap? The chaos around them swelled into a cacophony, but Sarah's focus narrowed to just Jack and Ethan. The world seemed to pulse with unspoken words and tangled emotions. A flock of starlings took flight nearby, scattering into the sky as if mirroring her own internal turmoil. Ethan's expression soured as he steadied himself, annoyance flashing in his eyes. "You can't be serious, Sarah. This isn't TOU." His voice was firm, laced with an urgency that once made her feel safe. But today, it echoed hollowly in her ears. Jack tightened his grip on her hand, his thumb gently rubbing her palm, beckoning her toward the unknown. What if you could be someone different? Someone who isn't afraid to chase after happiness? Behind them, the bus driver huffed impatiently, glancing at his watch. The moment felt fragile, like a thin piece of glass ready to shatter at the slightest touch. Sarah knew she needed to act before the bus departed, carrying her former life away. "But if you go, what does that mean for us?" Ethan's voice broke through her reverie, strands of desperation woven into his question. "Is it really worth risking everything for a fantasy?" Sarah's heart twisted painfully at the thought. Everything they had built together, the way he always knew how to make her laugh, the promise of stability, even the mundane routine, it all danced before her eyes, begging to be held onto. Yet standing beside Jack felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, ready to plunge into the vast unknown. She searched Jack's face, looking for assurance. There was a fire there, vibrant and alive, calling her forward. It was the reassuring spark that reminded her of what she longed for beyond the ordinary. "I can't pretend any longer," she finally breathed out, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't be the person I thought I was. Not anymore." In the brief silence that followed, she thought she saw a glimmer of hope in Jack's eyes, a promise of adventure. But Ethan's expression darkened, and for a flicker of a second, a storm raged within her. "What if I fall?" she asked, doubt crawling inside her chest. Jack took a step closer, his eyes steady. "Then I'll be there to catch you. No matter how far you fall, I won't let go. You're not alone." In that moment, Sarah felt a strange sense of liberation wash over her. The anxiety that had gripped her heart loosened its hold, replaced by a spark of daring that made her feel dizzy and alive. "Last call," the bus driver shouted, jolting her back to reality. Time was slipping away. With every heartbeat, fear and resolve waged war within her. Just as she gathered herself to make the decision, Ethan stepped forward again, desperation clawing at the sides of his voice. "Sarah, think this through. What awaits you with him? I can give you a life you've always wanted. Can you?" She shot back, surprised by the fierceness in her own tone. "Or is it just the life you want, built on my fear?" She felt the weight of every moment they had shared, every laugh, every tear, but this was different. She could no longer ignore the call for something more. "Why are you so afraid?" Ethan challenged, stepping closer. The answer stirred in her heart like a flame. He had become her comfort, but Jack was the thrill. "I'm not afraid of moving forward," she said, each word feeling like a declaration. "I'm afraid of never trying." With one swift action, she turned toward Jack, anchored by the choice she finally needed to embrace. Would he take that leap with her? She held her breath, looking at Jack as he mirrored her seriousness. The air crackled with anticipation. "Let us go," he said, a grin breaking through the tension, his voice filled with a confidence that wrapped around her like a warm embrace. Without another glance back, she stepped toward the bus, pulling Jack along. But when she chanced to glance over her shoulder, she saw Ethan's face, a mixture of disbelief and heartbreak etched into his features. "Sarah!" His voice broke through the turmoil like glass shattering, slicing through her resolve. The finality of their bond suddenly weighed heavy. Again. Had she really left it all behind? Did she truly even know what was waiting for her on this new journey? She took a deep breath, letting the wind carry away some of her doubts, as Jack urged her toward the bus. Standing at the cusp of her decision, so many questions swirled, and what lay ahead felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Would the leap into the unknown bring the happiness she craved, or would it shatter her dream into pieces she couldn't put back together? As the bus door began to close once more, she faced forward, heart racing again, daring to embrace whatever came next. Would she find a world that loved her back, or would she face something altogether different? The city street pulsed around them, yet time seemed to freeze as Sarah stepped toward Jack, heart pounding with both fear and exhilaration. "Let us go," he said, a sunburst of hope in his eyes. She nodded, and they moved together, side by side. As the moment unfurled with uncertainty, they reached the bus just in time. As the doors swung wide, Sarah felt an overwhelming mix of emotions surging within her. She turned one last time to see Ethan, frozen with disbelief. A bittersweet ache washed over her, but she reminded herself that leaving wasn't about closing a door, it was about opening new ones. The bus driver glanced at them, impatience creeping into his voice. "Last call." With a shared glance, they stepped inside, and Sarah felt a weight lift from her chest as they took a seat together, close enough that their knees grazed. The hum of the engine echoed her heartbeat, each thud like a drum chanting of newfound freedom. Jack took her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. "This is just the beginning, Sarah," he said softly, his voice filled with certainty. "We can figure it all out together." She nodded, her heart warming at the promise in his words. Outside, the city lights dimmed, and the bus glided through the streets like a dream chasing the shadows of their past behind. As they moved farther from the life she once knew, the brightness of their journey ahead ignited a spark of courage inside her. "What do you think will happen next?" she asked, glancing at Jack. His eyes lit up, brimming with passion. "I don't know, but I know it will be real, and it will be ours." Something shifted within her. The tension that once coiled tightly in her chest relaxed. It wasn't just about freedom from Ethan or fleeing from her old life, it was about stepping into the unknown, hand in hand with the man who saw her soul. "Where do we go from here?" she asked with genuine curiosity. Jack grinned. "We find you a place to sleep that's more cozy than a bus stop, for starters. Then we'll work on your nursing dream, piece by piece." The bus rolled on, each mile marking a departure from the life that felt like a weight holding her down. In a burst of excitement, she laughed. "And maybe we'll even get our own place someday. With a garden." Jack chuckled, his eyes sparkling. "A garden sounds perfect. I can picture us chasing after every species of flower." They both laughed at the image, each moment stitching together a nascent future. With every mile, the love they were building bloomed, blossoming in ways Sarah could hardly fathom. Outside the bus windows, the world transformed, unfamiliar buildings blurred into a collage of colors, shifting shadows, and illuminations of hope. "Sarah, I want to know you, not just your dreams, but everything. Your fears, your joys, whatever lies in between," Jack said, sincerity wrapping around each word. She was taken aback by the gravity of his heart laid bare. "I want that too, Jack," she admitted, her voice breaking slightly as genuine emotion surged over her. "I want to share everything with you." The bus turned down a quiet street, headlights illuminating the way. Sarah felt the warmth radiating from Jack through their clasped hands. It filled the void she hadn't realized existed. As anticipation grew in the air, she noticed a glowing cafe in the distance. "Can we stop there?" she impulsively asked. Jack lit up at her enthusiasm. "Absolutely. Let us celebrate our first step into this new life." The bus halted, and they sprang up together. The quaint little cafe smelled of roasted coffee and warmth, and as they walked in, Sarah couldn't shake the sense of contentment spreading inside her. The chilly air faded as they settled into a cozy nook, with mugs warming their hands. "I'm so glad we took that leap," Sarah said, her spirit lifting even more as she looked into Jack's eyes. His comforting presence surrounded her, filling the void she thought would never heal. It's like I can finally breathe. I've never been more proud of anyone, he replied, his eyes filled with awe. You chose you, Sarah. You chose happiness. Together they laughed, shared stories, and sipped on steaming drinks. The walls of their past slowly crumbled, replaced by laughter and dreams of a future they both wanted. And in that small cafe, two souls intertwined by destiny, found solace and support. Paths carved by struggle had led to this moment, a beautiful revelation. No longer would they be alone, they would face whatever came next together. As they left the cafe, steps lighter than before, hand in hand, Sarah looked up at Jack, her heart swelling with hope. She realized she was finally, truly home, and as they walked into the bright new beginning, Sarah held on to Jack tightly, knowing that together, every future was worth chasing. Before you go, remember this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire your heart. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these amazing tales flowing in. Your support really matters. Comment below your feelings about this ending and the journey shared between Jack and Sarah. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation, the hope and courage that love can ignite. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.